Hey everyone, welcome back to the Slimefun Tutorial with your host Boomer, and today we are here with the LiteXpansion add-on for Slimefun. This is part 2 of 3. Today we're focusing on power generation and power storage. We have 6 machines we're going to look at today, so why don't we dive right in. The first one we're going to look at is the generator, and that's what it's called, is a generator. You'll notice in the lore, there's no power information. It's because it's all based on the items. Whatever you've got lying around, literally, there's over 200 different items you can use. Regardless of the item, every item burns 20 joules per second. So what does that mean? This machine produces 20 joules per second. It's a matter of how long does each item run. A lava bucket will last you a minute 40, whereas a red carpet will last you 1 second. So depending on what's literally sitting in your chest, you could run this and get 20 joules per second out of it. So it is an early game machine. It's not super powerful, but it's a good start to get you going. Now, the next 3 are all of the solar generators inside of LiteXpansion. All 3 of them run the same way. If you are in the overworld or the nether, they produce the daytime value. If you are in the end, they produce the nighttime value. So the very first one we're going to look at here is the advanced solar panel. 160 joules per second, 80 per tick. It's a pretty good sized power generator. But what impresses me is the buffer, 320,000 buffer. That's the equivalent of 5 carbonado capacitors from Core Slimefun. That's a lot of energy to have stored up. Now, you've probably heard again, LiteXpansion is hard. It's not hard. There's nothing hard with Slimefun. It's simply a lot of crafting, a lot of layers and levels, and you just have to keep yourself organized. And I've talked about that trick of using the 3x3 sections of a chest to help organize the layers to keep it a little bit simpler. But again, it's a strong generator. Now, people might say, okay, looking at all these things, not bad, but then I get to here. And I have to use an energized solar generator as part of the recipe, which yields 256 during the day and 128 at night. Why do I want to give that up for 160 and 20? It's part of the growth of the solar generators. As you get deeper into the LiteXpansion generators, not only do they produce more power, but the buffers continue to climb. It's a double benefit to you by going through this process. All right, moving over to the hybrid solar generator, a 1 million joule buffer. That's the equivalent of 2 energized capacitors from Core Slimefun. 1,280 joules per second. That's 2.5 nuclear reactors. That's 5 energized solar generators from Core Slimefun, or energized solar panels. Even 160 joules per tick at night or in the end. So it's still producing decent night power, strong daytime power, and that big of a buffer, once you've got it filled, will definitely get you through the night easily. Not a problem there. The recipe here, getting a little bit more expensive, but definitely well worth it. All right, so there's your hybrid solar panel. What about the big ultimate solar panel? 10 million joule buffer. This is a void capacitor essentially from Infinity Expansion. 10,240 joules per second. That equates to roughly 21 nuclear reactors. And even 1,280 joules per second at night. This thing is a lot of power. It's also a lot of cost. 8 hybrid solar panels. It's a lot of expense, but well worth it. The 8 hybrid solar is the same time day rate, but what you're gaining is that additional 2 million joule buffer. So if you're already making 8 of these, all the only difference is an advanced circuit board, which are very easy to craft, to give you an extra 2 million joule buffer. Try doing that in any other add-on with Slimefun. It can't be done. All right, we have 2 more machines to look at here. Now, I mentioned power generation and power storage. These 2 blocks are the LiteXpansion capacitors. What do you mean capacitors? LiteXpansion doesn't have capacitors. Of course it does. They're labeled very clearly what they do, right? The MFE clearly shows what it does, and the MFSU clearly shows what it does. Well, hang on. Let's click on it. Let's get more detailed information. So here's the thing. I see on the Slimefun Discord a lot of people going, what are these things? There's nothing in the guide. And you're right. There's nothing in the guide. However, there is this thing called Google. Google an MFE, Google an MFSU. They'll tell you what they are. They're very simple. They're a multi-function machine. In this case, power generation and something else that we'll talk about here in a second. So when we look at the MFE, we've got nothing but a bunch of gray stained panes and an open slot. Doesn't tell me much, right? Same thing in the MFSU. Now, if you've Googled them, you know that they are an electrical storage unit as an option. We've got them connected to a power regulator, and you'll notice there's 14 million joules here. This thing only has a 10 million joule buffer. This should tell you that right off the bat, this is a capacitor. But if you're ever unsure, there's this thing in Slimefun called the multimeter. Right-click the item, and it can tell you how much power, a little bit of lag, telling you how much power is stored or its capacity. In this case, it holds 4 million. So we just demonstrated that that is a 4 million joule capacitor. In other words, roughly 8 or 7.5 carbonado capacitors from Core Slimefun. So then what does an MFSU do? It holds 40 million. 4 void capacitors from Infinity Expansion. That's a lot of power. So what about this other little thing in here? Well, let's think about this. You've got the ability to add something, and it's a power storage unit. What else could it do? Well, let's put something in there that needs charging. This charges at the rate of 52 joules per tick. It almost instantly charged that one. This one charges, the MFE charges a little bit slower. I believe it's 12. Yeah, 12 per tick. Nice. So not only is it a capacitor, it is a charging bench. One much more powerful than the other, but very clearly a great resource to have. It's a multi-function. It's a capacitor and a charging bench all in one. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. We have one more coming out here soon, the remainder of LiteXpansion. We're going to cover all the remaining machines that are in place and any additional tools that we haven't talked about yet. But as always, when you're playing Slimefun, you've got to go boomer or you got to go home. We'll see you later.